What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Jeremy coming to you with another video, and today we are going to talk about the DCEU versus the Disney Star Wars universe. Which one has performed better up to this point? We're going to talk about it from a financial standpoint, we're going to talk about it from a fan standpoint, and we're going to talk about it from a studio standpoint, and then we're going to decide which one has a brighter future ahead. Now, I'm going to try to make this video as quick as possible, but it may run a little longer than my normal videos, so let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the DCEU first. So the DCEU. Now, this is a universe that had a lot of hype surrounding it before it released in theaters. And the very first film to roll out was Man of Steel. Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, starring Henry Cavill. A lot of hype around this movie. The trailers were fantastic. The marketing was incredible. They had already made a positive on their budget with the marketing alone. That's how good the marketing was for this movie. Then it released to a really good opening weekend and a solid box office run. It made $668 million worldwide. Really solid run. Probably not quite what they were looking for, but still a very good opening. A very good opening, all things considered. And then we moved into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And this is where the problems really started. Man of Steel. Now, I didn't like Man of Steel. I tried to like Man of Steel, and I did not like it. But Man of Steel had enough defenders that it would have been okay. Man of Steel has enough fanfare surrounding it where it would have been fine, even though I do not like that movie at all. But then we move into Batman v Superman, and this was a problem for so many reasons. The whole Zack Snyder cut that did not make it into cinemas. Then you had the reviews were a disaster. It split the fan base. It was splitting fan bases before The Last Jedi split a fan base. Not quite as bad as The Last Jedi, but pretty damn close. But Dawn of Justice, overall, it did make money. It made good money. It made $873 million, but anybody that was paying attention was expecting more. They were expecting a lot more for this film. They were expecting, $1.3 billion, $1.5 billion. I mean, this was Batman and Superman on screen for the first time ever. This movie should have made a lot more money. But it kind of showed you what was going on with Man of Steel, where it left enough people just didn't feel inspired with that movie. And again, I don't dismiss the fact that there were people that liked it. But Dawn of Justice was a big problem. Then once the theatrical release or the Blu-ray came out and we got to see the director's cut, then people started realizing that the theatrical release had a lot of problems. I despised Dawn of Justice, both versions. I couldn't stand either one of them. Then we move into Suicide Squad, and this is where it kind of just, if there was anything worth holding on to, Suicide Squad kind of actually drove it off the tracks. And Suicide Squad still made good money, $746 million worldwide. Solid run. There was a lot of hype around this movie, and it ended up being extremely hated. I actually like Suicide Squad more than BVS or Man of Steel, but that's just a personal preference. I think overall, Suicide Squad is the most hated DCEU movie to date. And it was a big problem. The marketing sold a bill of goods that a lot of people feel that they were ripped off on. And then we move into the one DCEU movie that has been an overwhelming success on every single possible level, and that is Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman did $821 million worldwide. The audiences loved it. The critics loved it. Everyone loved it. It was a home run on all fronts. One of my favorite films of that particular year in 2017. Wonder Woman was a major win for DC. No doubt about it. Then we get to Justice League, and Justice League was hot garbage times 10. Now, I actually ended up liking Justice League, but that's because my expectations were so incredibly low. They were incredibly low, and all I wanted to see was for Superman to be treated fairly, and I believe he was treated fairly. And so I gave it a favorable review simply for that reason alone, but it was not a good movie. It had a lot of problems. But it was the best thing I'd seen from that particular trilogy. And when I say trilogy, I meant the, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then the Justice League. That was my favorite film of those three easily, but only mainly because of Superman. still not a good movie. And it underperformed. It was a terrible performer. $657 million at the box office. A complete and total disaster for WB on every level. And that's kind of where we are with the DCEU. Now, we have a lot of questions about the DCEU. We have a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's happening with Ben Affleck. We just heard that Joaquin Phoenix is cast as the Joker. We got a Shazam movie. We've got Aquaman coming up. We've got Matt Reeves working on his Batman movie. There are so many questions out there right now, and it doesn't seem like they have a lot of direction. But one thing that DC has not done is DC has not attacked the fans. They have not attacked the fans for the massive backlash they have received. They have owned whatever they have done, and they've accepted whatever criticisms have come their way. And for that reason, they should be commended, even if, in my opinion, I don't like any of the movies outside of Wonder Woman genuinely. Like, again, I liked Justice League because it was, my expectations were so low, but the only movie I really truthfully enjoy in the DCEU is Wonder Woman. And I think WB has done a great job of handling the criticism. While they haven't done a great job of running this franchise, in my opinion, they've done a great job of handling the criticism, owning it, and not lashing out at the fans. Keep that one in mind for a little bit later. Now, let's move into Disney's Star Wars. So, I mean, it's no secret. For the most part, these movies have done incredibly well financially. There's absolutely no disputing that whatsoever. You look at the box office, and you've got The Force Awakens made $2 billion. Now, a lot of people will tell you that that movie was going to make $2 billion no matter what, and those people are probably right. I don't know if $2 billion is the number you can say it would have made no matter what, but it definitely was going to make a shit ton of money, which it did. If you look at The Force Awakens box office numbers, the numbers held incredibly well. So The Force Awakens did great. We all know this. It did, $2 billion. The Blu-ray is like the fourth best-selling Blu-ray of all time, and it was a great setup in a lot of people's eyes at the time. And that's the key, at the time. Now, I love The Force Awakens. I was very happy with The Force Awakens. And so, generally speaking, the audience, for the most part, was happy with The Force Awakens. Then we move into Rogue One. Now, Rogue One, again, did really well. Did over $1 billion. It had a solid box office run. It pleased the fans. It pleased the critics. It pleased everyone across the board. I didn't like Rogue One that much, but Rogue One was fine. I didn't hate it. I didn't really dislike it. It was just fine. It was fine. It was whatever to me. And a lot of fans really did love that movie, especially a lot more than a lot more loved it than I did. That's for sure. But overall, it pleased the masses, and so it was still a really solid entry into the franchise. Then we move into The Last Jedi. And this is the catastrophic failure for Disney. This is it right here. Like, if we thought Batman v Superman was bad, we didn't see anything yet. The Last Jedi has become the biggest problem in the history of Star Wars. This movie, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't know if we truly know how bad this movie is for Star Wars yet. I still don't know if we've felt the entire ramifications of this movie. So, The Last Jedi opened up to an extremely strong weekend. At the time, it was the second biggest opening weekend of all time, second only to The Force Awakens. That has since dropped to number 3 because of Infinity War. But a super strong opening weekend. $220 million opening weekend domestically. Just a mega opening. And then you look at the numbers, and you see this 67% drop in week 2. That is a very telling sign of how bad this movie was for the fans and for the general audience. You go back to The Force Awakens, a 39% drop in week 2 after a record-breaking opening weekend, and a record-breaking opening weekend by a mile. So to hold 40% was incredibly impressive. Rogue One, another solid opening weekend, and then it holds 58%, probably a little steeper of a drop than Disney wanted, but still not a catastrophic drop. 67.5% is a major drop, especially when you're comparing it to the previous film in the franchise that it was playing off of. That is a problem. That is a huge, huge problem. Now, then we can talk about everything else. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about The Last Jedi Fallout. We all know what's happened since then. Then we move into Solo, a Star Wars story, and this is the Justice League of the Star Wars universe, except this is even worse. Even worse. So if you look at Solo, it had a terrible opening weekend in comparison to what the expectations were saying, and then the second week was a 65% drop. That is a problem, a huge problem, and we are 52 days into the box office run here, and this movie is not going to pass 400 million worldwide. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so that's where we're at with the Star Wars side. Now, Star Wars has definitely made more money with less movies, and that's not a surprise to anybody. It's made more money than the DCEU with less movies. But if you look at the pattern of these movies, it's kind of the same pattern. They all kind of open up strong and then they start dwindling away. And right now, we're dealing with both of these franchises have their worst performing movie as their last movie. Now, the difference is Solo should not have ever been the top grossing movie. No chance in hell that was going to happen. But Solo should have performed a lot better than it did. Whereas Justice League, if you look at it, like Justice League should have been the highest performing movie of that entire franchise because it's the Justice League. But so many mistakes were made along the way to get them to that point. And so where are we now? Where are we now with these franchises? Well, if you look at it from a fan standpoint, I truly believe how we are sitting right now on this date in July, how are we looking right now? I believe it's not even close. I believe the fans have definitely been more pleased with the DCEU than the Disney Star Wars universe. There's no doubt about it in my mind. You look at the characters and what's happened with Star Wars. Han is dead. Luke is dead. Carrie Fisher passed away. That means Princess Leia is no longer part of this universe. We are stuck with characters that we don't like, we don't connect with. There is so many problems within this universe right now as it is currently built and with the current movies that have left us in the position we're in. Then you go back to the DCEU. Now again, there's a lot of problems with the DCEU. There's no doubt about it. But Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, is overwhelmingly loved by everyone. This is a character that has pleased the audience. Now, whether you like Henry Cavill or not, I think we can all agree he's a very good Superman, Regardless of what we think about his character and how the character has been portrayed or written, he as an actor has done a great job portraying that role. Ben Affleck, I love Ben Affleck as a filmmaker and as an actor. I don't really love his Batman that much, but you have to look at it from a general consensus standpoint, and Ben Affleck's Batman is loved by many people. To a lot of people's surprise, because when he was cast, a lot of people hated on him. But once they saw him in the film, so many people were thrilled with Ben Affleck's Batman. And those are your three main characters right there. So you have to look at that, and you have to say, from a fan standpoint, there's no doubt about it. The characters in the DCEU have definitely been treated better than the Star Wars characters right now, and the fans are more on the side of the DCEU characters. There's no doubt about it. So Star Wars, you win. You made more money, okay? There was no doubt about it. You were always going to make more money, but you made a lot more money with less movies. So Star Wars wins that round. Then you look at how the fans have reacted to these particular franchises, and I think the DCEU wins that one going away because of how the fans have reacted to these particular characters and how they've been treated. You don't kill off Luke Skywalker. You don't kill off Han. You don't misuse Luke Skywalker in the ways you have and expect the fans to still be on your side. So the DCEU wins that round. So what do we have left? Studio involvement, and how has the studio handled it? Well, one studio, the DC Warner Brothers studio, they've handled this like champs. Zack Snyder has handled this situation like a grown-ass man, and he has been killed online. Like, he has been put through hell online, along with facing a terrible family tragedy. And through all of that, through all of the criticism, through all of the craziness, through all the family tragedy, Zack Snyder, the man who has been the face of this from a creative standpoint, has never lashed out at the fans. That needs to be commended and highlighted. Then you have Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy and all of the people at Lucasfilm that have continued to go through the same thing that the DCEU has gone through, yet they have attacked the fans viciously over and over and over again. So which of these two studios wins the final round? No doubt about it, Warner Brothers and DC have handled this situation with flying colors compared to Lucasfilm and Disney. Now, how does the future look for both of these franchises? That is the difficult part. And that's going to be kind of up in the air. And again, everything is from my perspective, in my opinion. I would love to hear what you think. This is from my perspective, in my opinion, outside of the box office numbers, because you can't really debate that. But the future looks, there's problems in the future for both of these franchises. There's no doubt about it. But if we look at DC has slated right now, they have Aquaman, which I'm excited for, Shazam, which I'm kind of excited for, Wonder Woman 1984, I'm really excited for that. Then they have 4 untitled DC films in the works. We don't know what's going on with Ben Affleck as Batman. We hear about Joaquin Phoenix being the Joker, yet we still have the Jared Leto Joker within the Suicide Squad of things. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That's kind of weird. But a lot of uncertainty. But then you have Star Wars, and we don't know what the hell's going on with Star Wars. All we know is we got Episode 9. We've got Benioff and Weiss working on their trilogy. We've got Rian Johnson working on his trilogy. We've got Jon Favreau working on his TV series. We've got Filoni working on his animated project. And you look at that, we don't know what's going on with the Obi-Wan movie. We don't know what's going on with anything. But if you look at both of them, I think that there's reason to have questions moving forward for both. But there's one thing that tips the scales, in my opinion. Rian Johnson is working on a trilogy for Star Wars. That means this future is much brighter for the DCEU. So I'm giving this to the DCEU. So right now, DC is looking better than Star Wars. In my opinion, neither one of them are looking great, but DC is looking better. I would like to know your thoughts below. Both of these cinematic universes have problems right now, major problems, but one of them has handled the criticism far more professionally than the other, and that is Warner Brothers and DC. And Zack Snyder, you sir deserve a mother effing medal for how you have handled this situation, how you have went through a terrible family situation, and you have still managed to be a true professional, and you have my respect, Mr. Snyder. You really do. I've always liked Zack Snyder as a filmmaker. I love Watchmen. I love Dawn of the Dead. I think 300 is a visual masterpiece. I don't really like the movie that much, but it's a visual masterpiece. I didn't like his DC movies. At least DCEU movies. But overall, Zack Snyder has just shown to be a true professional and a man's man. And for that reason, I respect you so much, Zack. And I hope that you get back to making films very soon. And maybe you can teach Ryan Roundhead Johnson a thing or two. That would be great. So anyway, what did you guys think about this video? Let me know in the comments below. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you later.